Hi guys, welcome to China Perspective. My name is 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗁 and you may know me as a German recruiter in Asia. Today I want to share a quick guideline for non-HR managers and how to interview candidates. Because let's face it, on the one hand, companies tell us that people are our most important asset, and that's true. But on the other hand, most companies do not offer internal trainings on how to actually properly interview a candidate if you're not from HR. My company is a recruiting company, and we often place candidates in industrial manufacturing or technology-driven companies in China. So usually a normal recruiting process looks like this. The first interview is usually done by your in-house HR, your in-house recruiter, and then the second interview will be done by the head of department or the line manager. And maybe a potential third interview can be by the China GM or China MD, or for very senior roles, also somebody global from headquarters. And as a recruiter, I've joined a lot of these interviews, and I have to see the interview skills vary widely. And you know what? That also makes sense. If you're a sales leader, operations leader, and you've been asked to interview candidates for your team, I mean, you're an expert in your field, but interviewing, it's just a different ballgame. It's a different skill. How do we know to ask the right questions, how to assess a candidate properly to make sure they're a good fit? Don't worry, I got you covered. So why is that important? Hiring the wrong person can not only disrupt your processes in your business or in your department, it is also just simply expensive in terms of time, resources, and also, yes, finance. So let's dive into some practical tips and tricks tailored for non-HR managers like you who want to hire the best talent. And along the way today, I'll be sharing some do's and don'ts, some real-life examples, and try to make this as impactful as possible for you. So let's get started in the beginning, and this is a step 0, if you will. Before you start the interview, please read the CV. A lot of times the hiring manager just sits down and reads the CV for 5 minutes while the candidate is over there and waiting. To be honest, it's leaving a poor impression on candidates. So, I mean, we have to understand the candidate already put in some work, spoke to the headhunter, maybe the HR, did a first interview, provided a CV, maybe did some research about your company, hopefully did some research about your company. And it's important to remember not only that you are evaluating the candidate, but the candidate is evaluating you to see if he or she wants to work with you in the future. And it's easy to jump to conclusions about the company. So what do I think if a hiring manager doesn't even read my CV before I show up? I probably took a day of leave, of my annual leave, to just come here, and this is how the respect and the appreciation of my time that they show me, not the best impression. And also it begs the question, if I work here, how are you going to treat me then? Are you going to be respectful of my time or not? Right, so let's get started, and let's get started strong. The first real interview step would be a self-introduction and setting the tone. So you do this by just introducing yourself and the company, but please keep it short. So for example, you can say, hi, my name is Miriam. I'm the general manager here at this company. I'm so happy to meet you today. Let me share a little bit about our company. Our company, for example, is a leader in the packaging solution industry, and we have a 20-year history. This position is really important for us to scale our business and to work with the demand that we have. Let me give you a quick overview about the job. So, for example, the position we are discussing today focuses on managing, let's say, a team of 20 people in our Shanghai office, ensuring that we meet our production targets while maintaining quality standards. Now, let's learn a little bit about you. So, this is really important that you set the tone, and otherwise the candidate sometimes can feel lost, right? Not all candidates are good at interviewing, and this is good to move forward. A good idea as an icebreaker question next is to ask a question, what do you know about our company? And this is a good way to get a feeling on how well are they prepared and what do they really know. I mean, you prepared, hopefully, by reading their CV, and it is very reasonable to expect the candidate to do the same, right? So you can just ask, what do you already know about our company? What do you know about our products? Or what do you know about our operations? And this really helps you to understand if the candidate did research and is genuinely interested. Please don't assume they know everything or overwhelm them. For me personally, if they give me a few sentences, then I know they've done some research, and that is enough. So the purpose of this exercise is to see if somebody is motivated. Motivated people gather information about the thing that they are motivated about. So it's a really good way to figure it out. After that, next up is work experience and really digging deeper. I recommend to use targeted questions to explore their past roles in their jobs. Ideally, you don't ask about every single workstation they ever had in their entire life, but really focus on the ones that are relevant. What is relevant? That can be due to a product, that can be due to an industry or due to a function. I personally don't recommend to ask very general questions or unspecific questions, such as, tell me about yourself. It's my favorite no question. Because if you ask that, they can talk about anything and it's not a good use of time. You don't want to know about their past life experience or a random job 15 years ago in a company that's not relevant. You want to know about what you want to know. So it's really a lot better if you ask very specific questions. And how can that look like? It can say that, I see from this year to that year you worked in this company. Please give me an introduction of the company and your main responsibilities while you worked at that company. Then follow-up question. Always please ask a follow-up question. So try to get an understanding what the candidate did and was responsible for in their previous job. So this can look like, what was the situation when you joined the company and what difference did you make? Or what projects were you involved in? Or what challenges did you face and how did you overcome them? How was the result, right? So please also, in terms of results, try to understand if it's a success story of the candidate alone or if it was a team effort. Especially for commercial roles, but not only. It is very common to have a candidate say, I increased sales revenue by X amount. And then here, if you hear that, it's always good to ask a follow-up question, like, was the candidate responsible for this success alone or worked in a team? And there's nothing wrong, but if they worked in a team, ask them who came up with the idea, who implemented it, and who had what responsibilities. And this will give you a much better idea of the actual work inputs the candidate had and takes away some of the guessing. I mean, you know your own company, right? You know what the setup in your company will be if you hire them. So you can make a judgment call. What kind of candidate fits better? What do they need to do in your company? The next point is about kick-out criteria. So these would be technical skills or hard skills. So in theory, this should have been done by the headhunter or your internal HR, but it never hurts to double check. So addressing these hard skills early is really important to filter out mismatches. If you hire for one role or one function regularly, it can be really helpful to have a few technical questions prepared. So nothing that requires really deep thinking, but something that lets you kind of get a feeling of the candidate. Do they really know what they're talking about? So industry or technical related vocabulary can also be a good indicator that they've really been in that field. For example, this role requires experience with lean manufacturing processes. Can you walk me through your experience in implementing lean strategies? And then they do, and then you ask them something deeper. And please don't assume everything is on the CV, and always try to get a feeling of their expertise with real-life examples. By asking for practical examples, you're also giving them a guideline what they should answer. So some candidates, they just really want to make a very good impression. I mean, they want a job after all, right? Some are just really nervous and don't know what to say. Some are overly enthusiastic, some are underly enthusiastic. And so by giving them direct and smart questions, you can weed out a little bit the, let's call them the blenders, and give, on the other hand, the ones who are more shy or sometimes more inexperienced in interviewing, gives them a better guideline to really tell you what you want to know. Another point that's really important to ask is achievements. So here it's really good to try to understand outcomes and not efforts. So what you can do is you can probe for measurable achievements. So you can ask, for example, what was your most significant achievement in your last role? How did you measure success? And there, the difference between effort and achievement can be, I met 2 clients every day, but nothing came out of it, or I signed 2 clients which were really big paying customers. Effort and achievement. In general, I recommend to not overlook the context. So you can always ask, what challenges did you face? How did you analyze them? How did you overcome them? Next up is assessing the cultural fit and the personality. And what we want to do here really is to understand, for example, how they work in a team. So you could ask a question like, when you work in a team, describe the roles that you naturally take. For example, are you more of a planner, more of a doer, or more of a motivator? You can also ask about their current environment, right? What aspects of your current job and work environment are positive? And please don't only focus on the technical skills. A candidate may be good in terms of technical skills, but not work in your company culture from a personality point of view. And who knows about your company culture? You know about your company culture. You know what works in your company. And ideally, you're able to put that into words. A good way for it to think about you specifically for your department is to look at your top 20 top performers in your department or across the company, and then try to find commonalities, something that they all have in common. Are they all extroverted? Are they all very detailed focused? Is there anything that combines them? And if yes, then this is a trait that probably works very well in your company culture, either in your department or in your company. And sometimes there can be quite a difference between the company culture we see printed on papers or on the web page and all those pretty little notes in the meeting room and what actually works in your company. So that's something to really think about. Another part of the interview should be about the location and potential travel. So it's good best practice to clarify logistical aspects early. So for example, how long a daily commute can the candidate accept? For example, in Shanghai, 1 hour for one way is not considered crazy at all. But how would that affect their personal life? How about business travel? So for example, you could say this position is based in this city and you would have to relocate. Also, it asks for 25% travel, so that's 1 week a month. Can you accept that? How will that influence your personal life? These are good questions to ask. And these are also important questions because then if the candidate cannot accept, then you already know. So ideally your HR or your headhunter will already have asked these questions, but it's really good to ask it again. For these kind of questions, generally most candidates are honest about it. And if they get it wrong, then often it's an honest mistake. So a really good recommendation that I got from my clients is that to have the candidate travel from their home to your office in rush hour, so that they can get an understanding of the worst case scenario. Because often interviews are early in the morning or late in the evening and then it's not rush hour, but the actual working hours are, when people would be traveling to rush hour. And I think that's a really good best practice to have. Let them try it out and then see if they can accept it, how long it really realistically will take. And now the dreaded salary compensation conversation, And this is something which is uncomfortable for managers and for candidates, and usually people try to just rush through it, but please don't. This is how you address it. So in theory, the CV you have received either from a headhunter or from your in-house HR should have most of these details already. What you should see in front of you, if not, please ask. Monthly gross salary, for how many months guaranteed? What is a variable component, for example, bonus or commission? What are the targets to reach the bonus or commission? How much bonus or commission was actually reached in the last reference period? So for example, last year. Are there any allowances? If so, what allowances? Is a 𝗵𝗹𝗴𝘀 invoice needed? Is there an additional commercial insurance? How many days annual leave? Also, please ask, besides that, did I forget anything? Because sometimes we forget and sometimes candidates have very special benefits. I also recommend that you make very sure we are talking in gross or net. This is a very, very common problem that I see, and sometimes candidates, they simply don't remember their gross, especially if they've been with the company a long time. They only look at their bank account, they're like, well, this is my net, and this is what they know. So if your HR gave you this information, just read it out loud to them and ask them to confirm it, and ask them if anything is missing. If your HR has not put it, then I recommend you ask these kind of questions and you fill it out yourself. Then as a next step, ask them what they expect as a salary increase to join your company. So a normal increase in China is somewhere around 25%, depending on the economic situation. This may be more or less. At the moment it's less. You should, in theory, also have this information on the CV, but it's always good to ask this in each interview step. Then also ask about availability. How long is your notice period? Are you currently interviewing somewhere else? This can be a little bit of a weird question, so I recommend to phrase it in a way that, are you currently interviewing somewhere else, so that I, as a company, know how quickly I need to give you feedback? If the candidate doesn't volunteer this information, don't push too hard. No need to make it awkward. Please also don't take it personally if candidates are interviewing with different companies at the same time. This doesn't mean he or she is not very interested in your company. It's just from a candidate point of view, the correct thing to do. And so now, in the end, closing the interview. So ideally, you give next steps and you ask the candidate if the candidate has any questions, right? Ideally, you wrap up with a clear next step. An example is, dear name, thank you for your time today. We are currently reviewing all the candidates we have and we will get back to you next week, Tuesday, for example. Do you have any questions to me about this role or the company? And it's really important, please do give them an opportunity to ask questions. This is their chance to show their general interest, and it's also a good way for you to get a little bit additional insight. So if they ask questions about the company, the roles, the strategy, the products, amazing. If they only ask about their compensation and what benefits they can have, then, well, that gives you an indication of what their main motivator is. I'm personally not cross about this. I wouldn't work for free. I'm sure you wouldn't work for free. I wouldn't expect anybody to work for free, but it gives us a little bit of an idea what mainly motivates them. And then you can make a decision. And then in the end, let's say you are deciding to move forward with a candidate. The best practice is to have your HR confirm the candidate's salary expectation with the candidate again and ask the candidate for a salary proof of his or her current salary. So this can be a bank account statement, this can be some other documents. Then discuss internally what you're willing to offer. Please don't make lowball offers. So lowball offers is usually what we call offers that are below the candidate's current salary. There are some economic times when you can get through with it to get the candidate, but in my 15 years experience of being a headhunter, what happens realistically is that the candidate, especially if they're unemployed, will accept the offer, and then either economy picks up or they get a better offer and they lose you. Candidates don't actually want to work for less. So at hard minimum, even in poor economic times, offer the same, or there should be an increase. Once you have made up your mind, please communicate with the candidate and let them verbally, not written, confirm it. After the verbal confirmation, ask your HR or the headhunter to do reference checks. Reference checks are being done with all previous companies except the current company. My personal opinion about reference checks, it's so-so, but it's still better to do them than not to do them. And then after the reference checks have been concluded and are positive, then you can send the written offer letter. Sometimes there's a little bit of further negotiation necessary, but if you follow the steps I suggested, especially talking about the salary, then those should be minimal. And ta-da! Congratulations to your new colleague. I hope you found this helpful. My company created a one-pager document on how to interview candidates. If you want to have this file, send me an email at m.vikatsaim@directhr.cn and I'll send it to you. I'm also creating a few more videos on how to interview for personality traits, how to interview for IQ, so aptitude, and the top 10 biggest mistakes hiring managers make in the recruiting process. Like and follow for more. Bye guys.